Hi guys, so I'm just going to make a video about some art terms. I'm not going to do all of them, obviously, since we're not at the finals yet, but I'm just going to talk briefly about the Age of Enlightenment, because that's kind of a really important time that we're learning about, and also just the terms that are involved in it are really important. So, this is just kind of specific to just the Age of Enlightenment and the terms that are known with it, and then I'll go more to other specific types of terms. So, it's called like the Age of Enlightenment or the Enlightenment, and so during the 18th century there was this movement, and it was also known as Age of Reason. So it could be called either Age of Enlightenment, the Enlightenment, or Age of Reason. But basically this movement was all about throwing out anything that was irrational and replacing it with the embracement of a rational thought. So this was a time where the middle class was starting to build their own wealth and becoming more than just merchant class. It wasn't necessarily an artistic movement, and Professor Saylor mentioned that a lot of times, but rather it was a cultural movement that significantly impacted the content in artworks during that time. So not only did intellectuals embrace rational thought, but they also challenged ideas that was based on faith and religion, and they also supported scientific thought and skepticism, towards superstition and some abuses of power by the church and the state. So just note that science over superstition became a really common theme at this time, especially within the arts. So because of this, a lot of revolutions resulted from the so-called Age of Enlightenment, such as the Industrial Revolution and the Scientific Revolution. You don't necessarily need to know about these revolutions specifically, but just understand why and when they were happening. So the French Revolution was also really prevalent as well. And there was also something else that emerged within the Age of the Enlightenment, and that was the Academy of Arts, which was a type of art institution founded by a personal act of King George III. So this mission was to promote the arts of design in Britain through education and exhibition. Additionally, the Academy also helped raise the professional status of the artists by forming a system of training and expert judgment in the arts. So in other words, it was slowly becoming a transition from apprenticeship for artists to an actual art school. So, we talked a lot about the artists within the Academy of Arts, and some of the members included Angelica Kauffman, Benjamin West, and Sir Joshua Reynolds. So within these academies, there was a development of the hierarchy of genres. So the hierarchy of genres was simply a ranking of subject matter. That's all it really was. So it wasn't uncommon during this time to classify everything. So that's what everyone did at this time. Like, they classified everything. Everything needed a certain classification. So, of course, this also included artwork. So the ranking went like this. So history painting was the most noble and the most important of genres. Landscape was second. Portraiture was third. Scene of everyday life was fourth. And then the lowest genre was still life. So overall, this was a very institutionalized concept. But also note that these roles might be reversed a bit because the hierarchy usually adapted to the culture of that specific time. So I think that sometimes portraiture would replace history painting, but it really just depended on that specific time. But for the most part, this is how the hierarchy of genre looks like, and they were very strict on-set rules. So there's really no compromise within those. So on top of the hierarchy of genre, the Academy also aided in forming the English-style portraiture known as the grand manner. This was basically an idealized aesthetic style that was derived from classical art and the modern classic art of the High Renaissance. So in other words, it was simply a type of painting where figures of high importance were painted in a way that elevates them above the everyday and common. So for example, Lady Sarah Bunbury, who was obviously a wealthy figure in England, would pose as some kind of pagan figure. So she would put herself above other things that were common. And actually this shows the beginning of Neo-Classicism, but I'll kind of get to that in a minute. But in addition to just the actual primary subject matter, the grand manner was also very idealistic, as I mentioned before. So like other elements of the painting that didn't include the figure were reduced by either simplifying or eliminating them, or kind of shifting the focus to significance of the primary subject. And you see that a lot. It's very simplistic and very idealized within grand manner portraiture. So Neoclassicism is another significant genre within the Age of Enlightenment. So pretty much Neoclassicism is not just a return of the ancient form, but rather this is a response to the Rococo culture we saw before, especially within the architecture style. So specifically, it was kind of, in my opinion, a counterattack to Rococo, especially to its lavish and gaudy art. It was also a